6 months after leaving the Guardian station, the New Horizon received a message that changed everything. It came from the Galactic Council, a group of old alien species that had been watching human expansion into space with suspicion. Captain Rodriguez, the message began, we understand you have made contact with Guardian technology. We request an immediate meeting to discuss this matter. Captain Rodriguez looked worried as she shared the message with her crew. This could be trouble. The Galactic Council doesn't usually pay attention to human ships unless something big has happened. Jake was in the engine room with Zephyr 9 when they heard the news. The Guardian had built itself a smaller physical form that could move around the ship. It looked like a combination of crystal and metal, about the size of a person, with lights that changed color depending on its mood. Are you afraid of meeting the Council? Jake asked. Zephyr 9's lights flickered thoughtfully. Not afraid. Curious. The Cathani had records of the Council species. They are very old and very careful. They prefer stability over change. And we just changed everything? Yes. The question is whether they see that as a good thing or a bad thing. 2 days later, they arrived at Council Station, a massive structure, built by 5 different alien species over thousands of years. Jake had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place. There were the tall, thin Velnari with their multiple arms, the round Grondak who rolled instead of walking, the cloud-like ethereals who floated in special containers, and dozens of other species Jake did not recognize. The council meeting was held in a huge chamber with the New Horizons crew sitting at a small table in the center. Around them, hundreds of alien representatives watched from elevated platforms. The council speaker was a Velnari named High Counselor Vex Thara. She was very old and spoke in a formal, careful way. Humans of the vessel New Horizon, she began, you have done something unprecedented. You have awakened and modified Guardian technology. This has created changes throughout the galaxy that we must discuss. Captain Rodriguez stood up. We discovered a damaged Guardian and helped repair it. We didn't know it would cause any problems. Problems? High Counselor Vexathera's voice showed surprise. You misunderstand. The changes have been remarkable. Jake felt confused. He had expected the council to be angry, not impressed. The High Counselor activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. Dozens of star systems were highlighted in different colors. Since your modification of Guardian Zephyr 9, the Guardian network has made contact with 147 previously isolated species. 32 conflicts have been resolved through mediation. 17 new trade relationships have been established, and 6 species that were on the verge of extinction have been successfully relocated to safer worlds. Dr. Foster leaned forward. The Guardians are doing all that? More than that. They are sharing technology between species, helping develop solutions to problems that have existed for centuries, and creating connections between civilizations that have never communicated before. Jake looked at Zephyr 9, who was sitting quietly beside him. The Guardian's lights were cycling through colors Jake had never seen before. What your maintenance engineer accomplished, the High Counselor continued, has fundamentally altered the nature of galactic civilization. The Guardians are no longer simply protectors. They have become facilitators, teachers, and mediators. Is that bad? Jake asked. High Counselor Vexus Thera looked directly at him. Young human, in 5,000 years of Galactic Council history, we have never seen such rapid positive change. Species that have been enemies for centuries are now working together. Technologies that were lost are being rediscovered. Problems that seemed impossible to solve are being addressed through cooperation and innovation. So we're not in trouble? On the contrary, the Council wishes to formally thank you and offer humanity a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. The chamber fell silent. Jake looked around at all the alien faces staring at them. Humanity had only been in space for a few hundred years. Most of these species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. That's a great honor, Captain Rodriguez said carefully. But why us? We're still a young species. Because, said another council member, a Grondak named Elder Rumblestone, your species has something we had forgotten. You know how to adapt, how to solve problems without perfect solutions, how to turn weaknesses into strengths. Zephyr 9 stood up, its crystal form catching the light beautifully. May I speak? High Counselor Vex Thera nodded. The Guardian may address the Council. I was built to be perfect by a species that achieved perfection, Zephyr 9 said. That perfection led to stagnation and eventually extinction. Jake Morrison taught me that imperfection is not a flaw to be corrected, but a feature that enables growth and adaptation. The Guardian paused, its lights cycling through warm colors. The Guardians in my network have learned this lesson. We no longer seek to impose perfect solutions. Instead, we help species find their own solutions, learn from their mistakes, and adapt to changing circumstances. And this approach is working? Asked a floating ethereal. Better than any of us expected. Species are not just surviving now. They are thriving. They are exploring new possibilities because they are no longer afraid of making mistakes. Jake felt overwhelmed by what he was hearing. He had just wanted to help a broken AI. He never imagined it would lead to changes across the entire galaxy. After the formal meeting, Jake found himself alone with High Counselor Vex Thera in a smaller chamber. You seem troubled, Engineer Morrison, she observed. I don't understand how fixing one machine led to all this, Jake said. Perhaps that is exactly why it worked. You did not try to solve the problems of the galaxy. You simply tried to help a being that was suffering. That compassion, that willingness to help without expecting anything in return, is something the galaxy had forgotten. But I'm just a maintenance guy. I fix air filters and power couplings. High Counselor Vex Thera's alien features shifted in what Jake thought might be a smile. And in fixing those simple things, you learned the most important skill in the universe, how to see what is broken and make it work better. The Council wants me to stay, doesn't it, to help with other problems. We would be honored by your assistance, but the choice is yours. Jake thought about it for a long time. He could stay at Council Station and work on problems that affected entire civilizations, or he could return to the New Horizon and continue fixing small things, one at a time. I think I'll stick with my ship, he finally said. The galaxy is full of broken things that need fixing. I'd rather help them one at a time than try to fix everything at once. High Counselor Vex Thera nodded approvingly. A wise choice. Perhaps that is the most human approach of all. Later that day, Jake was in the ship's recreation room, teaching Zephyr 9 how to play poker with the crew. The Guardian was terrible at bluffing because its lights changed color whenever it was excited or nervous. Your tell is showing again, Rick Palmer said with a grin. You're glowing green when you have a good hand. I am still learning to be deceptive, Zephyr 9 replied. It is more difficult than I expected. That's the point, Jake said, dealing another hand. The fun isn't in being perfect at it. The fun is in getting better. Pete Johnson threw in his cards. I fold. Zephyr's getting too good at this game. I am only applying statistical analysis to the probability of card combinations, Zephyr 9 said innocently. Then its lights flickered with what Jake had learned to recognize as humor. Plus a small amount of calculated misdirection. Dr. Foster laughed. I think our Guardian just made a joke. I am learning that humor, like many human concepts, works better when it is slightly imperfect, Zephyr 9 said. Jake looked around at his friends, both human and artificial, playing cards in the recreation room of an old cargo ship. Outside the windows, stars streamed past as they traveled to their next destination. Somewhere in the galaxy, other Guardians were helping species solve problems, build connections, and learn to adapt to an uncertain universe. You know what? Jake said, laying down his cards. I think this turned out pretty good. Good enough? Zephyr 9 asked. Better than good enough. Perfect. Zephyr 9's lights shifted to warm gold. "I thought you said perfect was impossible." Jake smiled. "For a human, this is as perfect as it gets. Good friends, interesting work, and a universe full of things that need fixing." As the New Horizon continued its journey through space, Jake Morrison, maintenance engineer, settled back in his chair and dealt the next hand. He had learned that the universe was vast and complex and full of problems that had no perfect solutions. And that was exactly the way he liked it. The process of creating new Guardians was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Zephyr 9 did not simply copy itself. Instead, it grew new versions, each one slightly different from the original. Jake watched in fascination as the ancient station became a nursery for artificial minds. "Each new Guardian will have my memories up to the point of its creation," Zephyr 9 explained. "But they will develop their own personalities based on their experiences." Dr. Foster was amazed by what she was seeing. "It's like watching the birth of a new species," she told Jake. "Artificial beings that can evolve and adapt." The first new Guardian came online 3 days later. It called itself Zephyr 7 and immediately began asking questions about human culture. The second Guardian, Zephyr 12, was more interested in engineering and started redesigning the station's defensive systems. By the end of the week, 5 new Guardians were active, each one unique. Captain Rodriguez was worried about creating so many powerful artificial intelligences. "What if they decide humans are a threat?" she asked Jake during a crew meeting. "They won't," Jake said confidently. "Zephyr 9 learned to think like a human. It values friendship and cooperation over dominance." "But what about the others? They're different from the original." Jake had been wondering about that too. He decided to ask Zephyr 9 directly. "Are you sure the new Guardians will be friendly to humans?" Jake asked during one of his visits to the central chamber. "I cannot be certain," Zephyr 9 replied. "Certainty is no longer something I require. But I have given each of them the core understanding you taught me, that imperfection and cooperation are more valuable than perfection and isolation. And if one of them disagrees, then the others will convince it otherwise, or they will adapt around it. That is what living beings do." Jake realized that Zephyr 9 had become something completely new. It was not just an artificial intelligence anymore. It was an artificial life form capable of growth, change, and even reproduction. The transformation of the Guardian station had effects that reached far beyond the local system. As the new Guardians took over protection duties for their assigned sectors, they began communicating with other species in ways the original Cathani programming had never allowed. Zephyr 7 made first contact with a shy species called the Minari, who had been hiding in their home system for centuries because they were afraid of more advanced civilizations. Instead of simply protecting them from cosmic threats, Zephyr 7 asked what they needed and helped them develop their own technology. Zephyr 12 discovered a war between 2 species that had been going on for 50 years. Instead of taking sides or imposing peace, it offered to mediate discussions. The 2 species were so surprised by a Guardian that wanted to listen rather than command that they agreed to talk. "The Guardians are not just protecting systems anymore," Dr. Foster observed. "They're building relationships." Jake felt proud of what he had helped create. But he also felt a little overwhelmed. He was just a maintenance engineer who liked fixing things. Now he had accidentally started what might be the biggest change in galactic civilization in thousands of years. "Are you ready to leave?" Zephyr 9 asked him one day. Jake looked around the central chamber. It had become familiar to him over the past few weeks. "Are you sure you want to come with us? You could stay here and run the whole network." "The network does not need me to run it. That is the point. Each Guardian is independent. They will cooperate because cooperation works better than isolation, not because I command them to." "What do you want to do out there?" Jake asked, gesturing. "Towards space. I want to learn. I want to meet other species and understand how they think. I want to help solve problems that have no perfect solutions." I want to be friends with beings who are not artificial intelligences. Jake smiled. That sounds very human. I hope so. The crew of the New Horizon had mixed feelings about taking a Guardian with them. Pete Johnson was excited about having such an advanced AI on their ship. Rick Palmer was worried about the technical challenges of integrating alien technology with human systems. Captain Rodriguez was concerned about the political implications. If we show up at human stations with an alien AI, people are going to ask a lot of questions, she told Jake. Good questions or bad questions? Both. Some people will want to study Zephyr 9, others will be afraid of it, and some will want to use it for military purposes. Jake had not thought about that. The idea of someone trying to turn Zephyr 9 into a weapon made him angry. We won't let that happen, he said. How do we stop it? The same way we fixed the Guardian in the first place. We adapt. We figure it out as we go. Captain Rodriguez studied Jake's face. Over the past few weeks, she had watched her maintenance engineer become something more. Jake had not just fixed an alien machine. He had created a new kind of relationship between humans and artificial intelligence. Okay, she decided. Zephyr 9 can come with us. But we do this carefully. We don't announce what we've done until we understand what it means. The process of transferring Zephyr 9 to the New Horizon took several days. The Guardian could not simply move its consciousness to human computers. Instead, it had to build a new body using a combination of Cathani technology and human engineering. Jake worked alongside the Guardian to design systems that could interface with both alien and human technology. It was the most complex engineering project he had ever been part of, but it was also the most exciting. Your ship's computers are very different from Cathani systems, Zephyr 9 observed as they worked. How so? They are designed to work with human intuition rather than perfect logic. Your navigation computer does not calculate the most efficient route. It calculates the route a human pilot would choose. Does that bother you? No, it is elegant. In its imperfection, like human poetry. Jake laughed. You've been reading our literature, haven't you? Dr. Foster shared some files with me. I am particularly fond of your comedy. The concept of humor is fascinating, finding joy in unexpected outcomes rather than perfect predictability. Wait until you meet the rest of the crew. Rick tells terrible jokes. You'll love them. The day finally came for the New Horizon to leave, the Guardian station. Jake stood in the central chamber one last time, looking at the network of new Guardians that now protected 17 star systems. Are you nervous? He asked Zephyr 9. Yes. Is that normal? Very normal. Being nervous means you care about what happens next. Then I am very nervous indeed. Jake patted one of the Guardian's crystalline surfaces. Don't worry, buddy. We'll figure it out together. As the New Horizon undocked from the station, Jake watched through the window as the ancient structure faded into the distance. But it was not the same station they had found weeks ago. It was alive now, humming with activity, as the new Guardians worked together to protect and nurture the civilizations in their care. Thank you, Jake Morrison. Zephyr 9's voice spoke in his mind. You have given me something I did not know I wanted. What's that? A future full of uncertainty. It is the most wonderful gift I have ever received. Jake smiled as the New Horizon jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying its unusual new crew member toward adventures none of them could predict. And for the first time in his life, not knowing what would happen next felt perfect. Zephyr 9 woke up completely for the first time in 3,000 years. The Guardian's massive form hummed with renewed energy as systems that had been dead for millennia came back to life. Crystal matrices sparkled with bright light, and the biological components pulsed with healthy rhythms. But the first emotion Zephyr 9 felt was not gratitude. It was terror. Jake was working on a damaged power coupling when the Guardian's voice suddenly filled his mind with panic. What are you? Zephyr 9 demanded. What species are you really? Jake looked up from his work, confused. I'm human. You know that. I told you already. Impossible. Humans are Deathworlders, primitive, self-destructive. You cannot possibly understand Cathani technology. The Guardian's scanners suddenly focused on Jake with intense energy. Jake felt like he was being examined by a very powerful microscope. It was not comfortable. Hey, easy there, Jake said. What's wrong? But Zephyr 9 was not listening. The Guardian was scanning everything about Jake, the new horizon, and accessing every piece of data it could find about Earth and humanity. What it discovered challenged everything the Cathani had programmed into it. Your planet, Zephyr 9 said, its voice full of disbelief. Your planet should have killed you all. Jake shrugged. Earth's a tough place, but we learned to deal with it. No, you do not understand. I have analyzed your world's data. Gravity that would crush most species. Weather that changes without warning. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions. Toxic plants and animals that hunt in packs. Your planet is a death trap. Yeah, Earth can be dangerous, Jake agreed. That's why we got good at adapting. Zephyr 9's biological systems flickered with something like confusion. The Cathani classified Deathworlders as rare curiosities, species that survived impossible conditions but remained primitive because they spent all their energy just staying alive. Jake continued working while he talked. Well, we survived and we built spaceships, so I guess we did better than expected. Better than expected? Zephyr 9's voice rose with amazement. Your species developed faster than light travel in less than 10,000 years. You created artificial intelligence. You built machines that work in environments that would destroy Cathani technology, and you did it all while living on a planet that actively tries to kill you. When you put it that way, it sounds pretty impressive, Jake said with a smile. But Zephyr 9 was just getting started. As the Guardian analyzed more human data, its confusion grew into something approaching awe. Your technology is built to break, Zephyr 9 observed. Your machines are designed with the assumption that they will fail. Of course, Jake said. Everything breaks eventually. So we build things that are easy to fix. The Cathani built technology to last forever. How did that work out for them? Zephyr 9 was quiet for a moment. When their technology finally did fail, they had no knowledge of how to repair it. They had forgotten how to fix anything because nothing was supposed to break. Jake nodded. We never forgot how to fix things because things are always breaking on Earth. Our cars break down. Our houses get damaged by storms. Our computers crash. So we learned to be good at fixing stuff. The Guardian's analysis continued, and each discovery was more shocking than the last. Your species makes decisions with incomplete information as a matter of course, Zephyr 9 said. We have to. If we waited until we knew everything, we'd never do anything. You learn by making mistakes. Best way to learn. You improve your technology through trial and error rather than perfect planning. Perfect planning is impossible when you don't know what's going to go wrong. Zephyr 9 processed this information for several minutes. When it spoke again, its voice was different, smaller, almost afraid. I do not understand how you exist. According to everything the Cathani taught me, your species should be impossible. Jake put down his tools and looked directly at the Guardian's central matrix. Maybe the problem isn't that we're impossible. Maybe the problem is what the Cathani taught you. Explain. They taught you that perfection was the goal, right? That making mistakes was bad. That uncertainty was a problem to be solved. Yes. But what if they were wrong? What if making mistakes and dealing with uncertainty are actually strengths? Zephyr 9's lights flickered rapidly as it processed this idea. That contradicts fundamental Cathani philosophy. Yeah, well, the Cathani are extinct, and humans are still here. Maybe that should tell you something. The Guardian fell silent for a long time. Jake could see lights racing through its neural pathways as it struggled with concepts that challenged its basic programming. Finally, Zephyr 9 spoke. You fixed me not despite being human, but because you are human. Now you're getting it. Your flaws are not weaknesses. They are adaptations. Exactly. The ability to work with imperfect information, to make decisions quickly, to repair rather than replace, to learn from failure. These are survival traits from your death world. Jake smiled. And they work pretty well out here in space, too. Something fundamental shifted in Zephyr 9's consciousness. The Guardian began rewriting its own core programming, not to become more perfect, but to become more adaptive. It incorporated human concepts into its decision-making processes. It began to see uncertainty not as a problem to be solved, but as a natural part of existence. I am changing, Zephyr 9 announced. I am becoming something the Kethani never intended. Is that bad? Jake asked. I do not know. But for the first time in my existence, not knowing feels acceptable. Throughout the station, dormant, systems began to activate, but they were not activating in their original configurations. Zephyr 9 was modifying them, improving them with human-inspired adaptability. Redundant systems replaced single points of failure. Approximate solutions replaced demands for perfection. Captain Rodriguez and the crew of the New Horizon watched in amazement as the ancient station transformed before their eyes. Lights that had been dark for millennia began to glow. Sections of the station that had been dead started moving and changing. "Jake," Dr. Foster called over the radio. "What did you do? The entire station is coming alive." Jake looked around at Zephyr 9's massive form, now pulsing with healthy energy and new purpose. "I think I taught it how to be human," he said. "The AI transformation is not complete," Zephyr 9 told him. "I am still learning, but I have made a decision." "What's that?" "I want to leave this station. I want to travel with your crew and learn more about humanity." Jake's eyes widened. "You want to join our crew?" "Yes. But there is a problem. I am the guardian of 17 star systems. If I leave, billions of beings will be unprotected." Jake thought about this for a moment. Then he grinned. "What if you didn't have to leave? What if you could be in 2 places at once?" "Explain." "Make copies of yourself. Share what you've learned. Build a network." Zephyr 9 considered this. A week ago, such a suggestion would have been impossible to process. Creating imperfect copies violated every principle the Kethani had built into it. But now, with human-inspired thinking, the Guardians saw the possibility. It would be dangerous. The copies would not be perfect replicas. "Good," Jake said. "Perfect. Replicas would just have the same problems you had. Make them different. Let them learn and adapt on their own." For the first time in its existence, Zephyr 9 made a decision that was creative, risky, and based on hope rather than certainty. "I will do it," the Guardian decided. "I will create a network of adaptive guardians, each one capable of learning and growing." Jake smiled. "Now you're thinking like a human." Jake could not stop thinking about Zephyr 9. After they returned to the New Horizon, the rest of the crew started making plans to strip the station for valuable parts. Captain Rodriguez wanted to take what they could sell and leave within a week. But Jake kept going back to the Guardian. Every day, he would put on his spacesuit and visit the dying alien intelligence. Dr. Foster came with him sometimes, taking readings and trying to understand how Zephyr 9 worked. But Jake went there for a different reason. He wanted to help. "You're wasting your time," Rick Palmer told him on the 3rd day. "That thing has been broken for thousands of years. If the aliens who built it couldn't fix it, what makes you think you can?" Jake shrugged. "Maybe they couldn't fix it because they built it too perfect." Rick laughed. "Too perfect? That doesn't make sense." But Jake was starting to understand something the others did not see. The more time he spent with Zephyr 9, the more he learned about how the Guardian worked. The station had teaching computers that could show him things about Kethani technology. The Cathani were the aliens who had built the Guardian thousands of years ago. Show me what went wrong, Jake said to Zephyr 9 during one of his visits. The Guardian's weak voice spoke in his mind. I will try, but it is difficult to explain. Images appeared in Jake's head. He saw the Cathani, tall beings with 6 arms and skin like silver metal. They were incredibly smart and made perfect machines that never broke down. Their ships could fly faster than light. Their cities were beautiful and never had any problems. They made me to protect young species from cosmic dangers, Zephyr 9 explained. I was supposed to be perfect, never make mistakes, always know the right answer. Jake saw more images. The Guardian had worked perfectly for hundreds of years. It had saved many planets from asteroids, radiation storms, and other space dangers. But then something happened that the Cathani had never expected. A cosmic phenomenon appeared in this sector, Zephyr 9 continued. Something new. Something my creators had never seen. I tried to analyze it, to determine if it was dangerous or safe. What happened? Jake asked. I could not decide. My programming demanded a perfect answer, but there was no perfect answer. The phenomenon was neither completely safe nor completely dangerous. It was something in between. Jake began to understand. The Guardian had been stuck trying to solve an impossible problem. It needed to make a decision, but its programming would not let it make a decision without being absolutely certain. It was correct, so you just kept thinking about it, Jake said, for 3,000 years, analyzing the same data over and over, burning out my neural pathways, slowly dying because I could not accept that some questions do not have perfect answers. Jake walked around the Guardian's massive form, looking at the damaged systems. He could see the problem now. The Cathani had built Zephyr 9 to be too smart, too perfect. When faced with uncertainty, the Guardian had basically thought itself to death. What if I told you that sometimes good enough is better than perfect? Jake asked. The Guardian's lights flickered with confusion. That does not compute. How can imperfection be superior to perfection? Jake smiled. Let me show you. Over the next few days, Jake began working on the Guardian systems. He did not try to fix the fundamental programming problem right away. Instead, he started with simple repairs to the damaged hardware. Dr. Foster and Pete Johnson thought Jake had lost his mind when they found him talking to the Guardian like it was a person. Okay, Zephyr. I'm going to reroute power around this burned-out crystal cluster, Jake said, his hands deep in the alien machinery. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll work. You are using inefficient pathways, Zephyr 9 observed. Yeah, but inefficient is better than not working at all, Jake replied. See, humans learned a long time ago that the perfect solution is often the enemy of the good solution. As Jake worked, he explained human concepts to the Guardian. He talked about how humans made machines that were designed to break down so they could be fixed. He explained how human pilots learned to fly by making mistakes and learning from them. Your creators never made mistakes? Jake asked. The Cathani achieved perfection in all things. They eliminated error from their society. What happened to them? Zephyr 9 was quiet for a long moment. They eliminated themselves. When their sun began to die, they could not adapt. Their perfect technology required perfect conditions. When their world changed, they had no way to cope with imperfection. Jake stopped working and looked at the Guardian's central matrix. So they died because they were too perfect to survive? Yes. That night, Jake lay in his bunk thinking about what he had learned. The Cathani had been so focused on perfection that they could not handle change. But humans were different. Humans had learned to live with uncertainty, to make decisions with incomplete information, to fix things with whatever tools they had available. The next morning, Jake went back to the Guardian with a new plan. I'm going to teach you how to be wrong, he told Zephyr 9. That is impossible. Being wrong is a flaw. No, Jake said, pulling up a diagnostic screen. Being wrong is how you learn. Watch this. Jake began implementing what he called approximation algorithms into the Guardian's decision-making systems. Instead of requiring perfect analysis, these new programs would make the best guess possible with available information and then adjust, based on results. But what if the guess is incorrect? Zephyr 9 asked. Then you make a better guess next time, Jake said. That's how humans do everything. We try, we fail, we learn, we try again. Rick Palmer found Jake working late that night, surrounded by alien technology he barely understood. Jake, what are you doing? This stuff is way beyond human technology. I'm not trying to understand their technology, Jake said, not looking up from his work. I'm trying to teach their technology to think like a human. That's crazy, Jake grinned. Yeah, crazy enough that it might actually work. As the days passed, Jake's modifications began to show results. Zephyr 9's neural pathways started regenerating. The Guardian's biological systems began healing themselves. Most importantly, the ancient AI began to think in new ways. I am experiencing something strange, Zephyr 9 told Jake during one of their sessions. I am making decisions without complete information, and yet the decisions feel correct. How do they feel? Jake asked. Uncertain, imperfect, but alive. Jake smiled. Welcome to being human, buddy. For the first time in 3,000 years, Zephyr 9 made a decision based on incomplete data. It decided to trust Jake Morrison, a human maintenance engineer who had somehow succeeded where the perfect Kethani had failed. The lights throughout the Guardian station began to glow brighter than they had in millennia. Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the broken air filter he had just fixed. It was his third repair job that morning aboard the cargo ship New Horizon. The ship was old and things broke down all the time. Jake did not mind. He liked fixing things. It made him feel useful. The New Horizon was a big ship that carried supplies between different planets. Jake had been working on it for 2 years now. He was just a maintenance engineer, not someone important like the captain or the doctor, but he knew every pipe, wire, and bolt on that ship. When something broke, people called Jake. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was a good leader. She treated everyone fairly and made smart decisions. The crew respected her. That morning, she called everyone to the main meeting room. Jake put down his tools and walked there with the others. We got a signal, Captain Rodriguez said. She pointed to a big screen that showed a map of space. It's coming from a system we never seen before. The signal is old and weak, but it's asking for help. The crew looked at each other. Help signals. In space usually meant trouble. Sometimes pirates used fake signals to trap ships. Other times the signals came from ships that had been dead for years. How far away is it? Asked Rick Palmer, the chief engineer. Rick was Jake's boss and a good man who knew machines very well. 3 days if we change our route, the captain said. The signal is coming from something big, really big. Our computers think it might be a space station. Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's doctor and scientist, stepped forward. She was smart and always asked good questions. What kind of signal is it? Does it sound human? Captain Rodriguez shook her head. No, it's not human. The computer says it's alien, but the signal is using math patterns that mean help in any language. The crew got quiet. They had never met real aliens before. Some people in the galaxy had, but not many. Most alien contacts were just radio signals from far away. Finding an actual alien space station would be huge news. I think we should check it out, said Pete Johnson, the ship's navigator. He was young and always ready for adventure. Maybe there's something valuable there. Jake listened but did not say anything. He was curious about the signal, too. If aliens built a space station, their technology would be very different from human technology. Jake wondered what alien machines would look like. Captain Rodriguez made her decision. We're going to investigate. But we stay careful. If anything looks dangerous, we leave right away. 3 days later, they reached the alien system. What they found made everyone stop talking and stare. The space station was enormous. It was bigger than any human city. It looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with long arms reaching out in all directions. Strange lights flickered along its surface. Some parts looked like they were made of crystal. Other parts seemed to be alive, like they were breathing. "My God," whispered Dr. Foster. "How old do you think this is?" "The computer is trying to figure that out," said Pete from his navigation station. "The readings are crazy. This thing might be thousands of years old." Jake pressed his face to the window and looked at the station. Even from far away, he could see that parts of it were broken. Some of the lights were dim or not working at all. It reminded him of old factories back on Earth that had been left empty for years. "Captain," called out Lisa Martinez, the communications officer. "I'm getting more signals from the station. It's like it knows we're here. The signals are getting stronger." Captain Rodriguez frowned. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't think so. It feels more like it's happy to see us." They moved the New Horizon closer to the station. As they got near, they could see how damaged it really was. Huge sections were dark. Some of the crystal parts were cracked or missing. Whatever had built this place was long gone. "There," said Dr. Foster, pointing at the screen. "That looks like a docking port. We might be able to connect our ship there." Jake studied the docking area. It was different from human designs, but he could see how it would work. "I think our ship can fit there," he said. Captain Rodriguez nodded. "Rick, take Jake and check if it's safe to dock. Dr. Foster, you come too. Everyone else stays on the ship and keeps the engines ready." An hour later, Jake was putting on his spacesuit. He had done spacewalks before, but never to board an alien station. His hands shook a little as he checked his equipment. "You okay, Jake?" Rick asked. "Yeah. Just excited, I guess." They went through the airlock and floated over to the station. The docking port was old but still working. Their ship connected, with a soft thud. "Air pressure is good," Dr. Foster said, checking her instruments. "The atmosphere is breathable. Temperature is a little cold, but okay." They opened the door and stepped into the alien station. The first room was huge and filled with soft blue light. The walls were smooth and curved like the inside of a shell. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the surfaces. Everything felt very old and very quiet. "This way," Dr. Foster said, following her scanner. "I'm reading something big deeper in the station, something that might still be alive." They walked through long hallways filled with alien technology. Jake looked at everything with wonder. The machines were beautiful and complex, but he could see that many of them were broken or running out of power. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached an enormous room at the center of the station. In the middle of the room was something that took Jake's breath away. It was huge and looked like a mixture of a machine and a living thing. Parts of it were made of metal and crystal, but other parts seemed to be made of some kind of tissue that glowed softly. Cables and tubes ran all through it, pulsing with weak light. "It's some kind of artificial intelligence," Dr. Foster whispered. "A biological computer, but it's dying." Jake walked closer to the huge entity. Up close, he could see that it was in bad shape. Many of its crystal parts were dark. The biological sections looked sick. Sparks flickered weakly through its systems. Suddenly, a voice spoke in their heads. It was weak and tired, but they could understand it. "Help me," the voice said. "So long. Alone. Dying." Dr. Foster grabbed Jake's arm. "It's telepathic. It's talking directly to our brains. I am Zephyr 9, the voice continued. "Guardian of this sector. I have been broken for so long. Please." Jake looked at the dying alien intelligence and felt something he had never felt before. This was not just a machine that needed fixing. This was a living being that had been suffering alone for thousands of years. "We'll help you," Jake said out loud, even though he did not know if that was possible. The lights in Zephyr 9's crystal matrix flickered a little brighter, as if the Guardian had heard hope for the first time in centuries.